Good evening. Good evening. This is Thurman Greco. Let's Live with Thurman Greco, coming to you from scenic downtown Woodstock in Woodstock, New York, and also coming to you from YouTube. And we have a very interesting guest this evening. Suzanne, you have such a collection here, but I think of you as Suzanne, but you have a business name.
Tonshi Mountain Studios.
Is that
Yes.
There's a story behind that.
I live at the base of Tonshi Mountain.
So that's your location.
Yeah, that's where I live, at the base of the mountain, Tonshi. Now, a lot of people, there's a little confusion locally about Tonshi and Tonshi. So they're, like down the road from me, there's Tonshi Terrace, Tonchi, where the mountain is Tonshi.
So there is a story there.
And I actually at the flea market, the Mowers Market, I encountered a gentleman who is trying to figure out where the name of that mountain came from. And it's been a mystery as to the origin of Tonshi Mountain.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what you have brought here this evening, and begin first of all by telling everybody how they can reach you, because we lose track of that during the show.
Yes.
So where do we find you and all of your beautiful goodies?
Normally you can find me at the Mowers Saturday Sunday Market in Woodstock, New York. We also have a website which has our home aromas. The rocks and crystals we're working on a separate website for. So right now we have Tonshimountain.com, Tonshi, word mountain spelled out.com. And soon we will have up and running Tonshimountaingems.com, which will focus on the rocks and crystals.
So you're going to have essentially two, you're a fork in the road. So you allow people to go toward the rocks and the gems, or they can go to?
There's going to be Tonshi Mountain Gems, which we're going to have some of the home aromas on that website that are sold out of my location, my studio, shall we say, in Shokan.
Well, now you didn't bring any of those this evening.
No, I didn't. I figured we wouldn't want smoke blowing in our face.
Well, because they're not here, can you tell people right in the beginning, what are they that they can find on that second website?
You can find wax melts, our incense, our oils. I believe we still have sages up on the website. So that's dedicated to our home aroma line, which is really how the business began, was with incense.
That's a story.
Well, it's in my mind basic marketing. It all goes back to when I first was doing the flea market. I had been laid off from the car business. I worked in the car business for over 10 years, and unemployment was not cutting it. This was back in 2008 when the economy just
Tanked.
Oh, it tanked bad. And I went into unemployment expecting them to help me get another job, and the woman was like, "Oh, you're going to be laid off for a while."
No hope.
So my mother used to do flea markets when I was younger, selling die-cast cars. And so I thought, well, maybe I can sell some of my jewelry, which all actually started at the market when I think this was 2004 or 5. I went to the market with my other half, and there was only one person there selling jewelry, and I really wanted to buy something for myself. And she had these nice beaded necklaces, and I bought one, but I kind of have an engineer's mind, and I was looking at this thing and I loved it, but I thought to myself, well, I could make this. So I went to Michael's, bought a whole bunch of beads, forgot to buy the string, so my first necklace was made with dental floss.
Wow.
But I made it for myself because this was a few years before I was laid off. So I was thinking to myself, I could turn my little hobby into like some extra money. Well, the first weekend I showed up, everybody was doing jewelry, and they were doing it a lot better than me. And I realized, well, I need to up my game. If I'm going to do this, I need to do it for real. And I was at the market for maybe a few months, and I'm looking around and I'm like, well, this is Woodstock. Where's the incense? Because I love incense. And I gave it another month and no one showed up selling incense. So I thought to myself, I'm going to make incense. So I bought oils from several different companies, decided I didn't like this company, and I settled on one company who has fantastic oils, and I've been using them since. And I bought a starter kit, and sure enough, I made all my money back the first weekend.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that started off with just 20 different varieties. So now we're up to 80 varieties of incense. And then later on, I brought in my oldest daughter, Angela, as my business partner, and she makes candles and wax melts for us, and she's out of Ellenville. So it is Tonshi Mountain Studios for real. There's more than one workshop.
There's
involved.
more than one.
Yes.
So even though we have all these glittering things,
Yes.
people came to you in the beginning for the incense.
For the incense, and then the jewelry evolved into wire wrapping as my specialty, and that evolved into wire wrapped crowns, which have become like the hot item for us in the jewelry category. So we consider ourselves kind of like a mobile boutique.
Well, now tell me about these crowns, because they are most unusual
Yes.
and so beautiful.
So this one is made with quartz crystal and glass. So you can wear it like this with the points in the front, or you can turn it around like this and make this the front for more of a dramatic effect. So that's the most common crown I make in regards to the quartz crowns. This one's a little bit more elaborate. This was actually made for someone, a friend of mine. I haven't seen her since before COVID, so I still have it. So I figured I would bring this one out, and this one's made with quartz crystals, pearls, even has some Super 7 amethyst beads in there. But our top seller is I refer to this as the economy crown. This is great for kids. The kids love these. Again, you can wear them either as like the fairy crown with the point going down in the front, like that, or like this with the point in the back. And these are actually adjustable in size. If I put a little bit more bend into them, it narrows the diameter, or if I straighten out the bends, they become larger.
So this is what you get for a young princess.
Yes, yes.
And how do you, when you order a crown for a princess, what kind of information do you need?
Basically, color. Do you prefer the gold-colored copper, silver-colored copper, or the traditional copper wire? More elaborate crowns like this, I would do in, if requested, sterling plated copper.
But now, I'm thinking, I want to go back to this one for the children.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is when you get a crown for a little girl, this is special. This is not just any birthday present, So, what do you do? What kind of questions do you ask?
It's mainly the color. What is their favorite color?
So that's really, and then you just go with it.
Yes. I actually, when I do custom orders, especially with brides, I get an idea as to, like, for example, if it's a bride, what is their theme? Do they have, what is their wedding jewelry? Is it made with different stones? is the dress, because the new thing is not wearing white. So the last bride had a red top and a black tulle skirt. And then she had a multicolored gem heirloom necklace that she was wearing as her wedding jewelry. So I incorporated the colors of the dress and the necklace into the crown. But I always tell them it's going to come out how it comes out, and I've never had anyone not gush.
Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah, so they have to relinquish all control over it. They do not get to design their crown because the crown is just going to come out the way it's going to come out. And I haven't had a dissatisfied customer yet, because I try to tune into the person and kind of the theme of the event.
Well, you know, a crown, when you make a crown for someone, that's a spiritual event. And
Yeah.
spiritual events go on their own paths.
Yeah.
And so you can't really just have somebody say, well, I want, because they can't.
Mhm.
It is the spiritual
Yeah.
path.
Oh, and it's the same thing with when people buy rocks and crystals. I always say that you don't pick the crystal picks you. And I can always see it when it happens. A person they'll be picking up different rocks and crystals, but then they start holding one in a certain way. And I immediately know that's the one.
Well, do you ever have anybody get the wrong crystal?
I wouldn't say anyone's going to buy the wrong crystal, but if the crystal is calling them, they're going to come back to the table for it. They always do.
So I'm a customer,
Mm-hmm.
and I pick up a crystal, and you look at it and you say, okay, this is the crystal that Thurman wants. And then I wander off because there's, 50 other.
I do not have a discussion with you at all about it.
Aha,
The
that's what.
communication is between you and the crystal.
So do you
if
set the
walk-
crystal aside,
No, it stays on the table.
and if somebody else gets it?
If it was meant for someone else, it wouldn't have been calling to that other person.
That's very interesting. How did you come to this experience?
Just observation and knowing how they speak. It's when it comes to rocks and crystals, I'm usually very shut off to them because they're not meant for me. I am just the vehicle in which they get to where they're going. And sometimes I'll be in a warehouse with hundreds of thousands of rocks and crystals, and I'll be just drawn to one, and it is telling me, you need to bring me with you because I'm going home. And every time I get that gut feeling, sure enough, it'll be on the table for 15 minutes and immediately sells.
Wow.
And you can just see the person bond with it. It's just the way people start holding them, where, it's an observation that it only happens when they've made a connection with a particular item like that.
And you don't ever say, this is yours.
No, that's I never get that from the crystals. They don't use me to direct the person to them. They are calling the person. It's kind of like going to the animal shelter, where if you pick a dog, that dog is yours, that dog is going to love you. It doesn't work out that way with cats. These are like cats. They pick you.
Well, that's very interesting because in the shamanic business, or in shamanic healing, rocks call you.
Yeah.
And I've heard that before, but and now your relationship with them is that you don't necessarily communicate with them; they communicate with you.
I don't bond with them where they're coming home with me to be mine. That very rarely ever happens. My collection is actually smaller than most people would think, because they have to really call to me to end up in my collection. And but I do get this feeling when it's like, if I bring you to the market, your person is coming. And it's almost like the stone tells me that. And there's been other times where they've told me other weird things, like, you need to bash me with a hammer. Because there's
something
inside, or I'm not one piece, I'm really two, and we need to be separated. And every time I've done that, it has worked out, where you can see where it's a much more beautiful piece separated. I actually, this was years ago. It was the first time it actually happened where I got this feeling I needed to break this thing in half. I bought a multicolored tourmaline in quartz, and I mean, it was pretty. It was a little larger than I wanted, and I was going to wire wrap it, and I have wire wrapped large pieces before, and I was just going to wire wrap it as it was. But there was just something that was telling me, if I take the chisel and the hammer and break it in half, something is going to happen. And sure enough, I broke it open, and every single color of tourmaline was exposed. There was the aquas, the blacks, the greens, the blues, the reds. They were all there. Of course, I didn't realize how valuable it was until after I sold it, but one of my repeat customers that I've done many pieces for ended up with it, so I'm good with it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you go from incense to gems?
Well, it wasn't really a transition from the home aromas to gems. It really was a transition with the jewelry line, where I started off making beaded jewelry, and then it turned into wire wrapping, which I really enjoyed as an art form. And I just found it was cheaper to buy the stones and crystals in bulk and sell the surplus separately. And then it just kind of, because I've always loved rocks and crystals, kind of just started picking up more and more steam, and I just started buying bigger and better crystals. And I became more interested in them along the way, in regards to not so much the metaphysical, but like the scientific and that angle on it. Even though the metaphysical is completely fascinating, and I've had some weird experiences with the crystals. There's definitely an energy to them, but I just love them, and it's a way for me to hoard rocks and crystals without actually hoarding them for real.
I have known, or I do know, a woman who makes jewelry up in the Albany area. And she told me one time, she said, I hoard these things. I'll make something, I'll make a piece, and I'll keep it for several years. And then I will turn it loose.
Yeah, the only one that I've done that with is this guy.
Tell us about this guy.
Well, this isn't a very common stone. This is, it is polished. It's a Brazilian rutilated phantom stone with keyhole. So, some people also refer to this as garden quartz, where you can see on one side there's a coating of lepidolite, which would sometimes embed itself into quartz. There's probably some iron in there as well. So when you look through the face of it, you can see the minerals that are on the back and on the inside. But it also represents two periods of formation. If you look in there, there's a quartz point embedded in the rutilated quartz.
Yes.
So the newer quartz grew over pre-existing quartz points. So it's quartz within quartz. And what makes it a keyhole is you see the larger point there?
Yes.
If you turn it over, that's hollow.
Uh-huh.
So you're actually seeing the imprint of the crystal that fell out. And it has a silver rutilization, and I didn't notice this for about 2 years. At a certain angle over here, it's sometimes hard to see. The rutilization makes a perfect pentacle.
Wow.
So this is I see it as a very jealous stone. It doesn't like me having any others but it.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and there are times where it just wants everyone to hold it. You know, some people are a little weird about others holding their crystals where you can't hold it. It's mine.
Yes.
This thing wants to be held by everybody. It's vain.
It's vain and it
It's vain.
shares.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed that you have some wire around there.
Yes.
That looks like it's wrapped wire.
Yeah, this I wire wrapped this in sterling silver. I have to polish it up. It's a little tarnished, and I want it, like with most pieces like this that I wire wrap. It shouldn't be about the wrap. It should be about the stone.
Right.
So I wrapped it so it was secure while still exposing the face and giving it, making it feel pretty at the same time.
And where did you find this?
Actually at the Mowers Market.
Did you really?
Yeah, from another vendor who was selling rocks and crystals. This was very, it must have been over 10 years ago now. It took me a month to haggle this out of her.
Really?
Yeah, and it was the last one, and I have never found another one like this in regards to it having the quartz embedded in quartz. And
she didn't want to sell it, or she didn't want to sell it to you?
She wanted too much money for it.
Oh, okay. It wasn't
Yeah,
the selling, it was the money.
It was the negotiation. The negotiation, I think, took a month. But I finally got it at a price that we could agree on, and it was her very last one. And I was thinking, I'm going to wrap this beautifully and I'm going to sell it for so much money. And no, I took it for a test drive, because you sometimes do that. You just want to see how it looks and feels and what other people say when you wear it. I took this for a test drive, and that was it. I was like, okay, you're mine.
And it's happy with you.
It is happy with me. Yeah.
Well, do you have other stones that are happy with you?
I did bring a couple from my personal collection. Most of these are from inventory. This one is, we refer to this as the Mother's Day stone. So some people may be aware that in Ellenville, there's quite a quartz deposit, especially up in Berm Road Park. And unfortunately, a lot of people have just scavenged. People have come up there with, heavy-duty equipment and removed large portions of the quartz. And I think it should have been left alone. It's one thing if the crystal is loose, okay. But when you're using saws, power saws, to remove slabs of stone, and
Is that public parkland? What is the situation?
I believe it is a public town park. I don't know. I know they don't want people removing the stones.
But they're not stopping them.
I think there is an effort, but I'm not sure. So we went up there one day, and we were just picking up the ones that were just laying around. And my youngest daughter, it was just me and my two daughters. The kids were left at home. It was just me and my girls, because we hadn't been together, just the three of us, in years without their spouses, or just,
Yeah.
we just wanted it to be us. So that was our Mother's Day that year for me. And my daughter was digging a little, and she was digging and digging along a vein, and she put her hand in the hole and she pulled this out.
Wow.
And she gave it to me for Mother's Day.
Wow.
And I mean, the stone up there, the tips tend to be very clear, but they also tend to be milky. And this one isn't too bad, but they're also covered in iron. There's a lot of iron up there, and red clay. So sometimes you don't even know what you have until you wash it off. And when this got washed off, it was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. So this is the Mother's Day stone for me.
Yes.
And then we have this one, which was one of the first crystals that I actually kept for myself, as far as like not buying from other people, but from someone who had worked for the town of Port Ewan. And they were doing some blasting to put in drainage, and they blasted into a quartz pocket. And so he just gathered up all the crystals and put them in a box, and he had them for years. And he needed some extra money, so he came to me and asked me if I would buy them. So I did, and this was in there, and it just reminds me of like what a floating castle, like if it was floating in the clouds, what it would look like. Kind of very Avatar-like. And it did survive getting blasted, but it does have internal fractures. I spent a long time trying to clean it, but it still has some dirt on the inside from the fracturing. But it is just crystals just layered into one crystal. So you can see here, and this one on the side, it almost resembles a Herkimer. And actually a lot of the crystals I bought were similar to Herkimers in the fact that they were fat and they kind of had that Herkimer shape. But you could tell there was just something about the energy wasn't the same.
Something was different.
There was something very different. I mean, like a Herkimer wouldn't have formed into like a cluster single crystal like this with the different points just packed in. Because sometimes crystals do grow into each other to form one crystal, and Herkimers have been known to do that. But there was just something about this, and just not the same type of energy. Because if you hold this, and if you try to just tune into what you get from it.
How often do you get out to Herkimer?
I don't. Because as I learned, I did go mining. And after being covered in mud and blood, I decided that mining wasn't for me, because you sometimes rake your hand across the tops of the points, and they are, you get sliced. So actually, this one, it's a Herkimer, but it's a shard. So you can see here, the other half of it broke off. But it's still fabulous in its partial form. And my friend Dave, who also does the market, he has a claim at the Diamond Acre Mine in Fonda, New York. So that's where this one came from. And he does the mining. I think he's probably 14, 15 feet down through sometimes solid rock.
Wow.
He does have a lot of crystals and matrix on his table. He usually comes out on Sundays. So that's his specialty, is the Herkimer diamonds.
He's the Herkimer guy.
He is the Herkimer guy.
Well, now, what about this one?
This.
Yes.
This, I always mess up the name. Hematoidal, I always think. It's hematoidal quartz. So this is a very interesting form of quartz. It has hematite in it, and most people know hematite for being a metallic gray. But when hematite comes into contact with the silica, which is quartz, it turns red. So you get these beautiful stripes and different designs in this particular type of quartz. This is a good stone for people who are going through a transition in their lives. It signifies new beginnings. So if you're moving, if you're have a significant life change coming up, this is a good one to have with you.
And this one you sell at the market?
This one is actually that's part of my personal collection.
That's part of your personal
But I do
collection.
have different shapes and specimens of that. I have some spears that are for sale. So there are different, I think I might have another double point like that coming in the next month or so.
Because what you have described should be a very popular stone for the Mowers Market, because everybody that's coming through there is going through the transition that you just described. Everybody.
I do sell a lot of this type of quartz at that market. It does draw people to them.
And you know, from a shamanic point of view, this is a very, very interesting tool. Mm-hmm. Because if someone has something that needs to be removed mm-hmm. from their body, you can remove it and hold it in this rock.
Yeah.
And not have it come off to you, and then at some point in the future you can release it out into the world. But you want to make sure that it doesn't go from the other person to you.
Well, then that's why you
do
have to cleanse them when
yes.
you do work like that. And when you do cleanse them, you have to be aware that how you cleanse them is important. Most people go to sunlight because it's easy and it seems pretty powerful, but it will bleach out the color of many crystals. So if you have colored crystals like smoky quartz or amethyst, moonlight is probably better.
So where do you find these? Now you talk about this one came from a certain person, mm-hmm. but do you have places that you go to?
I have two primary sources that I source from. One is a wholesaler who their focus is on ethical mining, and because there's a lot of unethical things that happens in us getting these pretty beautiful things to us. Madagascar is probably one of the worst places when it comes to ethical mining. Slave labor is involved. Typically, with this one came from Brazil, but if it came from Madagascar, you wouldn't know the source of it because it gets taken from the slave labor by the warlords, and then it's kind of cleansed the way people money launder through different people until it ends up in the hand of a reputable wholesaler. Whereas the people I work with, they buy directly from the miners themselves. And they have, even down in Brazil, bought equipment for these miners to extract crystal for them. In fact, they've been rewarded greatly for that because one geode that they brought in, the only place it would fit was their warehouse. It was probably about 30 feet high.
Wow.
And it was just a museum quality amethyst geode. It was enormous. And it was crusted with calcite, and it was just spectacular to watch. And it probably ended up in a museum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a specimen like that, you would have to spend a few $1 million
yes.
to purchase.
Well, and you talk about Madagascar, even talking about Brazil, that country is going through such trauma mm-hmm. that
yeah.
it's impossible to bring out something from Brazil now that has not been traumatized in some way. Even if the people who are mining it, I believe, are ethical and do mm-hmm. things properly, just you know, all the things that are
the
happening
energy of it.
you can't avoid that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so destructive, you know.
Yeah, and in some ways, the crystals being taken away from there leaves
That
the energy.
cleanses it too,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
then they leave that energy behind, unfortunately, with the people that are still there. But
Well, tell me about this one.
so this is smoky quartz. Smoky quartz. I actually did a YouTube video on smoky quartz. I need to get back to my videos on the stones, because there's more to the stones than just the energy. There's history. There's science. Smoky quartz is actually the national stone of Scotland, and it is very common in the Scottish Highlands. And historically, ancient warriors would embed the smoky quartz into their weapons to empower them. Metaphysically, they help connect you to your past, to your ancestors, and it's also interesting how it gets its color. So this is a basic smoky quartz. Anything that's gray, brown, or black is classified as smoky quartz. So this started its life out millions of years ago as clear quartz, but quartz changes color based sometimes on what's embedded in the quartz. And with smoky quartz, it's aluminum. So the traces of aluminum in the smoky quartz, when exposed to natural gamma radiation, is what turns it this color. And the longer it's exposed, the darker the crystal. So this guy is also smoky quartz, and this one was very heavily irradiated, and you can just see how black this guy is compared to this one. Because if I shine my light on this one, oops, gotta do it this way, you're really not seeing anything really translucent. But with this guy, you can see right through it.
Oh, wow.
So this had a lot less radiation than.
So this one would probably have been an older, or it had more experiences.
It was exposed longer, so it could be an older formation. It depends on how the radiation was radiating throughout the earth. So there's different reasons. One would be irradiated longer than the other.
Now, what about this one?
That is rose quartz. The universe. A lot of people think the romance stone, but it is actually just love. Period. Universal love. This one is a little different in how it gets its color. I forgot what the mineral is, but the pink is embedded into the quartz through microscopic fractures and inclusions. So that's why you see it looks striped, and it varies in color quite a bit, because it's how the other mineral embedded itself on a microscopic level into the silica.
Now, what about this luscious thing?
This is clear quartz. So clear quartz is basically pure quartz. In fact, Herkimer diamonds are considered to be the purest form of silica on the planet, which is why, and I forgot to bring the little ones. I have some that sparkle so brightly. Herkimers, when they're clear, they look like diamonds. And they're just quartz, but they're a little bit different. You'll never see a Herkimer form like in a elongated crystal like this. They're always very fat. The top facet will have a small facet on one side and a long on the other. They're always double tourmalated, so then you have the side facets. And when you get to the bottom facet, If the top one is long, on the bottom it'll be short. So when you hold it point to point, it almost looks like it's kicking sideways. So that's one way to identify a Herkimer diamond. And historically, if you went back to, say, the Victorian era and you found a fake diamond ring, before this cubic zirconia existed, if it was a fake diamond, it was a cut Herkimer. And only a jeweler could tell, like, the best grade Herkimers from an actual diamond without scratching it.
Wow.
So, yeah. And amethyst, this is another one that gets its color through radiation, not as much as the smoky quartz. Typically, it is iron oxide embedded in the silica that when it's irradiated turns purple. And this one actually, and it's also not uncommon to find smoky quartz mixed with the amethyst. So sometimes you'll see what they call phantoms. This one really, there's a little bit of phantoming here where you see the lines and they usually line up with how the stone facets. So it's very common to find smoky quartz within the amethyst. And if it has citrine mixed in, then it's called an ametrine.
So how did you, when you began your journey, how did you find these things?
You know, they just stumble. You just stumble upon people and opportunities. Like, you know, for example, this piece. So this one was cut in China. Most of the factories that cut the crystals into shapes are going to be found in India and China. And I made a connection on through social media with someone, and he ended up being my professional buyer overseas. So the Chinese wholesale market is a little different than the US wholesale market. So if I go to a US warehouse, it's a warehouse. One person owns the warehouse. Or I'll go to a rock and crystal show where different wholesalers will be set up in the wholesale section. Whereas in China, their wholesale markets are actual markets like flea markets. Only instead of buying one of this and another of that, you have to buy the entire basket, which could weigh 50 to 75 pounds. So you're not just buying a couple of smoky quartz like this, you're buying a whole lot of them. But because I work with this buyer, he goes to the markets, he goes directly to the factories, and we cut out probably 2 to 3 middlemen, which keeps the prices reasonable from what they could be on my table.
So how many years have you been doing this?
Well, I started 15 years ago. That was the first time I showed up at the market, and it just evolved. It's really the rocks and crystals have become a major addition probably within the last 5 to 6 years. And it just started off as just, you know, buying in bulk to do the wire wrapping and just kind of, well, I want to sell amethysts, so I'm going to buy a bunch of amethysts. And, you know, it just kind of kept growing and growing, and now I have everything.
Now, what is this, my dear?
That is, they call that sapphirolite. It is an iron and zinc ore with quartz drusying throughout it. Anything that has drusies always appeals to me. I try to curate the different pieces that I buy. Even if I'm buying in bulk, I'll take a good look at what's in that basket before spread out on the table before I buy everything. I like a nice selection. So I did actually bring something for you.
Really?
To look at. It's the only one I have.
Okay.
I was watching your show with Fiona,
Yes.
Because this is something else I make, but because it's very personal, and I only do them as custom jobs, and this was a custom for someone out of state.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we have a slogan.
Oh.
I actually do have a slogan for this. Imagine how powerful Harry Potter would have been if he wasn't playing the Sticks.
Amazing. Isn't this beautiful? You did this for someone.
Yeah. It was going to, well, I never made the connection with the person themselves. It was going to be a birthday present that was going to be gifted by someone else who was making the purchase from me. And it just kind of fell through. And as I was making it, I was getting that feeling this isn't going with that person. So it's still waiting for its home.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Yes. So this is going to find its home now.
Yeah. It was made as a healing wand. When using stones and healing, they really are a way of channeling your energy to focus you on what your brain should be doing.
It's beautiful. And it seems to me that with healing in mind, with all these different stones, it's quite powerful.
Yes, and it has the tourmaline. It also has some Herkimer diamonds embedded in them. Herkimers are an amplifier, so you don't want to necessarily leave Herkimers by themselves. They need something to refocus their amplification because it can go bad. They've been known, Herkimers are not good if you have nightmares and you have a Herkimer in your bedroom because they will intensify your dreams. And they're also used in out-of-body, and because they're double tourmalated, they connect the earthly plane to the astral plane. And sometimes if you're not trained in that,
it gets away with you.
It can.
It gets away with you.
So,
you have brought up a very interesting subject because these are very stressful times. Mm-hmm. And not that we haven't always had stressful times, but these are it's kind of
very stressful.
I run across so many people now that they either have insomnia or anxiety, or they have the both, which play off on one another.
Yeah.
So do you have anything on this table which helps with anxiety or helps with insomnia?
I have books for that.
Okay.
Because I can't always...
okay, so that's what we do.
But,
when somebody comes to your table and says, I have anxiety and I have insomnia, you say, here, this is what we do.
Because there's a lot of stones that might be good for anxiety, but if you're targeting insomnia, then you want to go to the Crystal Bible. I also, for the science enthusiast, I have the Smithsonian reference guide. And then I also have a guide that targets crystal healing specifically according to different ailments and different, metaphysical properties, like, protection, or, if a person's needs something for depression.
Well, I'm beginning to believe
creativity.
That when people come to me or someone else or whatever, when the subject of depression or the subject of headaches or the subject of whatever comes up, if you just kind of sit quietly and listen for a few minutes, you're going to hear the word anxiety or you're going to hear the word insomnia. And I hear people, when they cannot go to sleep, after a while, it becomes an obsession.
It steamrolls for people.
And so, if you could bring a bit of this into your bedroom and clear out a lot of the garbage that is there, you can be a lot easier. And you know, it's not only physical now, it's digital. It's the computer.
Yeah.
It is the phone. It is
Yeah.
and it is people do not understand how terrible it is.
Yeah, and you know, if someone comes to my table, it's one thing if they're looking for someone else, but typically I'll tell them, well, while I'm looking this up, see if anything's calling to you, because sometimes the stone the book might pick may not be
what you need.
because there could be specific reasons for the insomnia or the stress that one stone will be better at handling than the one the book is saying.
Absolutely.
That's just the general.
Absolutely.
You know.
And choosing a stone for someone else is really a pig in a poke. I mean, it really is difficult.
Sometimes the stones will tell you that me.
Yeah, sometimes
Me,
they will.
because- Yeah.
Sometimes
But
they will.
the person who's doing the purchasing has to be tuned into that.
And you know, it's hard to just take yourself away and say, "Oh, my friend or my sister would like this." I had that experience with my daughter. I went into a shop and she's in Arizona, and I said, "You know, I want to get something for you." She said, "Oh, Mother, make it blue." So make it blue. Okay, so I did. So I sent it to her, and she sent it back to me. And this is a woman. Yeah, this is a woman.
Wow.
She said, "You know, I cannot even have this stone in my house. It's too strong."
Oh.
So I took it back to the woman, and I said, "Listen, I'm going to exchange this for something else." And I said, "This is just an amazing. I haven't heard of anything like this." So we did. We made an exchange. Everything was happy. Several years went by. Been back and forth in the shop. Went back in the shop, and there was a stone. And I said, "You know, that's really nice." It was the same damn stone. And it now I wear it.
Yeah.
It was calling to me.
It was calling
to me to
and
begin with.
that's why it was
And it was too strong for her.
focusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was repelling her. And
Yes.
It's kind of interesting because I did have a very odd experience with a stone that I sold. And it was, of course, a Herkimer, because if something intense is going to happen, it's going to be a Herkimer diamond. I had a crystal healer come to my booth. And now, I'm typically a skeptical person. I don't necessarily buy into everything everyone says about stone energy. It was like, I can be skeptical. So she wanted a wrapped Herkimer. And she looked at all the ones that I had wrapped, and none of them were calling her. So she asked me, "Do you have any more that you haven't wrapped yet?" So I'm like, "Oh, well," I bring them out. And, she looks at them, and then she picks one up, and she starts holding it in that way that I know, you're bonding. And she hands it to me, and she says, "Can you wrap this?" And I'm like, it's almost closing time. It's not going to be the prettiest, but it'll hold as a pendant. She hands it back to me, and this uncomfortable sensation just shot up my arm into my elbow. I put it down, the feeling went away. I picked up another stone, totally fine. I picked that one back up. It was just no logical reason for it, that I would have that sensation. And if you're into Star Trek, you would know the saying, if you have eliminated all logical possibilities, the only logical possibility left is the illogical. So yeah, it's like I've felt some pretty powerful things from them that cannot be logically explained. So
what did you do with that stone?
I uncomfortably wrapped it and handed it back to her. I can only say that crystal wanted to be with her so intensely.
Wanted nothing to do with you
It did
anymore.
not want me holding it,
Right.
handling it. It did not care about being wrapped. It wanted to be with her.
Right.
And
Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah, and, you know, even with the like the pendulums, I had these pendulums. They were layered in the chakra stones, and you know, I was playing with them. I like to play with play with them sometimes. And there was this one that every time I held it over my palm throbbed. So I decided I'm going to do the blind test. I had my daughter hold every single one of those pendulums over my palm, and my palm did not throb for any of them except that one. And it actually scared me, and I just sold it to the first person that wanted it. I didn't ask it any questions. I was a little too scared of it.
You were,
Because I
and
had
that person
such a
bought it.
reaction. Yeah, but they didn't have the throbbing, so I was like, you know something, we're just gonna let
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
I'm a little too scared of it.
Yeah.
So
This is beautiful, beautiful.
yes.
Well, now listen, we're kind of running off on, running our short on time here. Can you tell people how to get in touch with you again?
They can reach us at Tonshimountain.com. If I also have an email, Tonshimountain@yahoo.com. And I also wanted to put it out there. I have a seasonal job because my business is seasonal, driving for a first student in the Ontario School District. And we do need bus drivers. And a lot of people don't realize that a CDL Class B course can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 or more. First Student offers the course to you not only free, you're paid for the training, and there is a $3,000 sign-up fee, or you get a bonus of $3,000 for signing up. Once you're approved to drive, the starting rate is $23 an hour for drivers.
You know, this is a very, very important thing that you have brought. We spent so much time on this that we didn't
Yeah.
spend time. Our community needs the drivers.
Yes.
The same way we need policemen and we got 2 minutes left. We're gonna have to do another show just
Yes.
for. Can we do another show just for school?
Absolutely.
It's you know, this is an important thing. This is not about business. This is about working to support your community.
Yes.
And the children.
Yes.
It's from the heart.
And
it is from the heart.
getting kids to school, getting them to school safely, and school buses are proven to be the safest form of transportation on the planet for a reason.
Yeah.
But it is important for working families because it brings them to school. It offers free childcare there, nutrition
It's safe.
for
It's
families.
safe. It's
safe.
Yes, it's the best.
And
Well, we're out
it's
of
important.
time now. Miss Ellen, thank you so very much. Listen, give us your name and your email one more time for these beautiful things. We will come back with the bus show.
Yes.
How about it?
Yes.
We will come back with the bus
Yes.
show. Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Ellen.